Young Americans are facing abnormally high levels of both unemployment and underemployment. And you probably won't be surprised to find out that, they all hate AI because AI is related to this. But while many are turning to trade schools thinking that, learning a trade will be AI proof, the fact of the matter is everyone is thinking the same thing. And trade schools are in high demand. And so let's start with the job market and what that looks like for America's young people. So we're currently experiencing a historical anomaly because the most recent data from the Federal Reserve pegged the unemployment rate for recent grads at 5.7% in the fourth quarter of last year, 2025. That's above the national rate, which almost never happens, right? So the unemployment rate on a national level is also kind of BS, right? So it doesn't include important groups of people who would make the number much higher, like those who have given up on finding work, those who are severely underemployed. Like if you work 1 hour a week, literally just 1 hour a week, you're included in the employment numbers. You are employed according to the federal government, which is ridiculous. However, officially, our unemployment rate stands at 4.2% nationally. Okay, so prior to 2020, recent graduates generally had a lower rate of unemployment than the rest of the American population, but the tides unfortunately have turned. So speaking of 2020, underemployment for recent grads was at 42.5%. Is at 42.5%. And that actually is the highest since 2020. So there are different definitions for underemployment, but underemployment is really important to focus on because, you're considered underemployed if, let's say, you went to school, went into a ton of debt, and then were unable to find a job in the field that you studied. That's considered underemployed. But the definition of underemployment that I actually like a lot more, because I think this is something a lot of Americans have been dealing with, is when you want to work full time, but there are no full time opportunities for you. So you have to cobble together, if you're lucky enough to find, a bunch of part time jobs. So that's also considered underemployed. So what does that have to do with all of this? Well, at companies that adopted AI, junior hiring fell nearly 8% within 6 quarters. Not because of layoffs, but through a quiet freeze on new positions. And that's according to Harvard working paper tracking 62 million workers. So guys, it's here. Okay, so there are mass layoffs, by the way. Oracle laid off tens of thousands of their employees in a freaking email at night. Yeah. Please tell me about how offended you are at me mocking that Ellison disgusting pig. But yeah, that's what they did. But on top of that, there are hiring freezes. So that's also contributing to the lack of jobs out there. Almost 60% of hiring managers use AI as an excuse for layoffs or hiring freezes because it plays better with stakeholders. And that's according to resume.org, a survey that they carried out. So some of this turmoil can be attributed to Trump's stupid decisions. Just let's call it what it is. So for instance, Jim Vandehei and Mike Allen, the co-founders of Axios, write the following. We talk to scores of CEOs every month and hear a common theme. With so much uncertainty about the economy, tariffs, geopolitics, and AI, it's easier to freeze hiring and take a wait and see approach. And look, guys, there is going to be downsizing if this war continues because the price of gas goes up, right? The price of energy goes up as a result of this war. It's not just that you're going to be paying more at the pump. The cost of transporting goods goes up as a result of that. And there's going to be limited supply of certain things. So a third of the world's fertilizer comes from the Middle East, from the Gulf in particular. That is now being blocked thanks to this war. That means that farmers are having a harder time getting their hands on the fertilizer they need to grow the food that we rely on. So there's going to be a shortage of food, which means Some people are going to go hungry. Others are going to have to pay a lot more for the food they eat and the food they need for themselves and their families. So this inflation is going to be really rough, terrible for people. And so you're going to have even less disposable income if you had disposable income to begin with. That means consumer sentiment will go down. People aren't going to be spending, meaning businesses will suffer and people will get fired. That's how it works. And I don't mean to be a doomer here. I'm just being honest with you guys because we don't have any adults in the room right now who care about ordinary people. And the decisions that Trump has made has only made our economy worse, not better. Many feel they overhired during COVID. This is back to Axios, and don't want to staff up now, only to lay people off if AI does what its makers promise. Indeed, CEOs tell us that they assume AI will replace a lot of white collar work, so they've paused backfilling jobs typically filled by junior new hires. God, I feel so bad. I feel so bad for young people in America right now. And by the way, I say this as a millennial. Millennials graduated into the economic recession that took place starting in 2008. There were no jobs. It was a really, really tough time for young people, and millennials felt shafted for good reason. So I know it's hard to believe it, but I do feel their pain to some extent. Now, we've heard what the CEOs have to say. Let's actually take a look at what's going on with workers. So if you look at this graph, this is data from Gallup. It says job market sentiment by education level from 2022 to 2025. And it's the percentage of people saying, good time to find a job or a quality job among US employees. Okay, well, the blue line on this chart illustrates the percentage of workers between 18 and 34 years old who believe that now is a good time to find a job. And as you can see, that number has fallen from over 70% in the first quarter of 2022, all the way down to just 19% in the fourth quarter of 2025. Now, is anyone in Congress worried about this? Doesn't look like it. Is the executive branch, is the administration concerned about this? Hell no, they're not. I mean, Trump is busy with his crypto schemes and his freaking, market manipulation tactics and, pleasing his masters over in Israel. Like that's all Trump is thinking about. So is it any wonder that young Americans absolutely loathe AI? Gen Z's excitement about AI, they were excited about AI. I don't believe that excitement ever existed, but Gen Z's excitement about AI dropped 14 points over the last year to just 22%. Hopefulness about the technology fell 9 points to 18%, while anger rose 9 points to 31%. And guys, that anger is what should concern the power players in this country. Because when people feel, and look, I'm not calling for violence, I want to be clear about that. But I also want everyone to be very aware that when people feel that they have nothing to live for, that they have no opportunities, that they have nothing left to lose, I'm worried that, they will turn to acts of violence, especially when there's a higher and higher percentage of Americans who are struggling and they don't see an opportunity to get out of that situation because the economy is basically rigged against them. God, these elites, like these executives, these like tech titans, why do they want to live in a society like that? Like you're going to build the moat around your estate and what? You're going to be safe? You're going to be living a great life? You're going to live in Mars? Anyway, let's keep going. So this isn't a matter of when or this isn't even a matter of whether or not young Americans are actually using AI. So daily AI users among the cohort saw even bigger drops in sentiment, with excitement falling 18 points and hopefulness tumbling 11 points. And in the face of all of this, young Americans are turning to trade schools. So this is an important part of the story because I thought trade schools could be the answer. And we do have a shortage of like plumbers, electricians, HVAC workers. These are so hot, by the way. Anyway, but yeah, we do have that shortage, right? Well, it turns out that that education is not actually very cheap because it's in high demand. As free and low cost routes like community colleges and union apprenticeships fill up, more students are turning to more costly private options. A 9-month cosmetology program in New Jersey, for instance, costs $17,000, while a 14-month aircraft maintenance program in Florida costs $40,000. Nationwide, trade and technical school revenue hit $5.1 billion in the last quarter of 2025, up 41% from 4 years before that, according to federal data. So just a piece of advice. There are a bunch of rich people who desperately want tax breaks through charity. And so they're looking to give some money to a student who needs it. Just write those essays, because no one writes the essays. No one thinks they're gonna win. No one thinks they're gonna get the grant. No one thinks they're gonna get the money. You'll get the money. Write the stupid essay, okay? They're not gonna read it. You don't even have to put much effort behind it. Just do it, and do as many of them as you can. Take their money and get some help paying for college or trade school. The best situation you could be in out of college or trade school is no debt, or as little debt as possible. So try to think about that and set yourself up to be a little freer than most of our students find themselves because of how exorbitant tuition happens to be. Anyway, it'd be great if we stopped sending money to Israel, instead, provided free trade school and free community college for our students, but God forbid we do that.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.